You were born perfect. You were born absolutely perfect. Your very first inhale, you were perfection. You were born with a destiny. You were born with talents. You were born with gifts. You were born with skills already in your genetic makeup. You were already born with everything that you needed to succeed in your most purposeful way, in your most powerful way, in your most unique, authentic, aligned, intentional path to succeed on your spiritual journey, to succeed in your spiritual purpose, and to unlock everything you needed materially to live that spiritual purpose. Sometime after you took that first inhale, some programming and conditioning started to take shape, started to take root. Now, picture this, imagine this. You were in your crib and you got hungry. You didn't even know you were hungry, but you got hungry and it was your natural instinct. You cried. And when you cried, somebody came and slammed a bottle in your mouth and fed you. You went to the bathroom, and when you went to the bathroom in your diaper, somebody rushed into your room and changed your diaper. And in these moments, you were like, holy cow, this is awesome. All of my needs are taken care of. All of my wants are taken care of. Everything, like my discomforts are taken care of. There's people that love me and they embrace me and they cherish me and they make sure I'm safe and they make sure I'm comfortable and they never leave me alone for too long. And every time I'm uncomfortable or something goes not perfect, there's always people that rush in to help me and to take care of me. Until the first time they didn't. You're hungry, maybe it's the middle of the night, and nobody shows up. Maybe your mom and dad slept through, you're crying. Or maybe one time you were uncomfortable, you had a stomach ache and you cried and nobody heard it, or you had a stomach ache and something was imperfect, and or somebody actually came to your rescue, came to your aid and started to soothe you, but it didn't work. And you're like, oh my gosh, now even when I'm in pain, even when I'm uncomfortable, like nobody's there to save me and just to make it all go away. And you started building up these stories and you started building up these beliefs that maybe your needs weren't going to be taken care of, or maybe your wants weren't going to be taken care of, or that nobody could help you become comfortable. You started building these belief systems, and you started building them at an unconscious level. Between the ages of 0 and 7, you are an unconscious sponge, and you experience the world very, very subconsciously. You don't know what's right and what's wrong. You don't know what's true and what's false. When a story pops in that your needs aren't going to be taken care of, or that your security is in jeopardy, it just roots into your subconscious makeup. It becomes a belief, and now you live as if that belief is true because you don't have the ability to discern. And then as you grow up, your mom, your dad, your family, they lie to you and they tell you that there's a Santa Claus and there's an Easter bunny and there's a tooth fairy, and you live as if these things are true. And you'll believe anything that anyone tells you. Teachers, pastors, some of your friends tell you that no one likes you, and suddenly you got this story lodged. You got this belief lodged in your subconscious, and you live as if this belief is true, even if it's not true. A boyfriend, a girlfriend tells you that they don't like you anymore and that you don't make them happy. And now you've lodged this story that you can't make anybody happy, or that it's your job to make somebody happy. And you live as if this belief is true. You carry out this belief. And we all know, if you've listened to this podcast for long enough, that your beliefs create reality. Reality does not create beliefs, except when you are an unconscious sponge, when you will believe anything that anyone tells you. And then we set out on a journey to not just reinforce these beliefs, but we live as if these beliefs are true. And then we shape a reality in the world through these beliefs, which often takes us off of our path. And when I say takes us off of our path, remember when I said you were born with this destiny in your genetic makeup. You were born with these talents in your genetic makeup. You were born with everything you needed to succeed in your body. You were born with everything that you needed, these dreams, these destinies, these talents, these ambitions, these desires. You were born with everything that you needed to succeed as the most authentic version of you. But all this conditioning takes you out of your zone. All this conditioning takes you off your path. New fears come in, new beliefs, new levels of insecurity, inadequacy, and insignificance. And suddenly you're living as if these are true. And you're starting to try to eliminate these stories. You're trying to eliminate the insecurity, the feelings and the emotions associated with insecurity, inadequacy, and insignificance. You're starting to live to avoid these feelings and to disrupt these feelings instead of dispel these things. And that shapes an entirely new material path or spiritual path. And the path that you were born with, the perfect path, the perfect destiny, the perfect set of talents, the perfect desire, the perfect you, the most authentic you, it gets buried under layers and layers of fear and stories and doubt and worries and trying to prove yourself and trying to overcome what's happening inside of you instead of living your path and living your destiny. Now, if you're anything like me, you get to a point where somewhere around midlife, maybe somewhere around 37 to 43 years old, somewhere in that zone, most people call it a midlife crisis, but I'd say it's not really a midlife crisis. It's a midlife calibration. It's a midlife recalibration. And what happens in a midlife calibration is that this conditioning and this programming and this life that you've built on the foundation of insecurity, inadequacy, insignificance, from all this fear, from all these false beliefs, that shit gets way too heavy and it all falls apart. And it's in those moments, in that moment, that we realize that the burden and everything that we've been carrying around, these obligations, this inauthentic life that we've been living, it's just too heavy to carry. And we've made it this far, but we're not going to make it another 43 years or 40 years carrying all this stuff. So it all falls apart. And if we choose to, we get to rebuild it back in a different way. And somebody will say, you're changing, or you've changed, or you're just going through an identity crisis. No, you're going through a midlife calibration, and you get to dispel everything. And sometimes we call it an awakening as well. I would say my midlife was really an awakening, and we get to rebuild it back, everything back in an intentional and purposeful and powerful way. And we get to remember who we are. And when I say we get to remember who we are, what I mean is we get to remember who came out and who took that first inhale, and what destiny and dreams and talents and desires were inside, locked in the genetic makeup of that beautiful, perfect, absolutely miracle of a child that was here, that incarnated in order to guide themselves and aid themselves and live on their spiritual path, the highest form of their expressed being, before all the conditioning and all the programming took root. And as we let go of the conditioning, and as we let go of the programming, and as we let go of the fear and the doubt and the worries and the insecurities and the inadequacies and insignificance, as we let go of all these stories, we don't become someone different. We remember who we were originally. And it is the process of remembering. And that's what life is about. It's also called the hero's journey. You were born, you were perfect, you stumble, you fall, and then the hero is reborn from the ashes. It's the hero's journey. We're all on a hero's journey. Why am I saying all this? There's a word that is super, super powerful, and it's super freeing and liberating, and it's called alignment. The word is alignment. And in the rest of this episode, I want to dive into what alignment looks like. Alignment is when you shift from any sense of doing into being. So when before everything fell apart for me and I got to rebuild, I would wake up every day, and I didn't want to wake up at this time to my alarm clock. And I would put on, long pants in the summer, and I didn't want to wear long pants in the summer. I'm always in shorts and flip-flops during the summer, but during the summer months, I'd put on long pants, and I didn't enjoy that, and it just didn't feel right for me. But I would go to this place I didn't want to go, and it was usually a business. It was usually a plant, and a lot of times I was running that plant, and I really didn't want to run that plant, but I wanted the money that was associated with running that plant. I really didn't want the responsibility of the plant, but I did want the leadership in that I got to experience in that plant. I didn't want to manage hundreds of people, but I did want to inspire hundreds of people. And I did want to nurture them. And I did want to care for them and grow them and help them grow and unify them. I didn't want the responsibility for the P&L, and I didn't want the responsibility for the hiring and the firing, and I didn't want the responsibility for the supply chain and for the environmental health and safety programs that we had. I didn't want operations. I didn't want to solve operational problems in the plant. But I did want to work with the people and inspire the people and challenge the people and grow the people in all of these roles. And I love that aspect. But the responsibility of the performance of the plant is not something I enjoyed. And in a lot of those cases, I felt like I had to do all of those things in order to do the things that I love. That was out of alignment. There was so much resistance in me going to work every day. There was so much resistance in me in going someplace that I didn't want to go. There was so much resistance in me in just doing things that didn't feel natural, that didn't feel encouraging, that didn't feel inspired. It was like I was fighting myself on a daily basis to try to force myself to do things that I'd rather not do. And that's because I was out of alignment. When the wheels fell off of my little corporate charade, and I lost 2 executive level positions in about 20 months, and I decided to put this thing back together, I got the opportunity to sit down and absolutely choose and design and decide to create a life that was truly authentic, that was truly powerful, and truly aligned with who I am and what I want most in life, instead of compromising myself and settling for this life that was built on insecurity, inadequacy, and insignificance. And I decided to choose a life that was inspired. And the word is aligned. Now, in my corporate role, the thing that I loved the most was sitting in my office with some of my employees or an employee and trying to understand what dream was in them trying to be expressed in the world. What did they love? What lit them up? What excited them about their life? What didn't excite them about their life? And all I wanted to do was, when they left my office, I wanted them to be a higher level version of themselves. And I wanted them to see life differently. And I wanted to give them the possibility and the hope of a greater future and a greater tomorrow, of doing what they wanted to do instead of what they were settling to do. And sometimes this was them graduating from my business, my organization, and going out and spreading their wings in a more freeing way. And I lost good people this way, but But what I was trying to do is encourage them to live an authentic, powerful, purposeful, and aligned life. That's what I enjoy the most. And when I started to choose my new future, when I started to choose my new destiny, which was just the destiny that I was born with, it was all about that. It was all about inspiring, encouraging, and lifting up, empowering other people to live a life true to themselves that felt good from the second they woke up to the time that they went to bed. And when I got clear about this, what was aligned for me, what would wake me up excited every day, I decided to never do anything except that ever again. And now everything that I do is aligned with that. I love writing content. I've got a new book coming out over the summer. I love recording this podcast. I love creating courses. I love teaching my mastermind. I love my private clients. I love my inner wealth community. I love getting up in front of people and being on stage and lighting their asses up so that when they leave that room, they're going to freaking go conquer life in their most powerful, their most purposeful, their most intentional, and their most aligned life. Because if they're not inspired by their life, they've been compromising life. And compromise always leads to disempowerment. One of the things that I take the most pride in the work that I do with folks is I've helped people launch multiple businesses, or I should say many businesses. I've helped many people launch many businesses. I helped one of my students create a travel business when they love travel, and now they're financing their travel and their life through their travel. I've helped people start photography businesses when they doubted if they could make money in photography. I've helped people start real estate businesses when they had a dream of real estate. Everything in their soul sciences and their astrology and human design and gene keys said that real estate was going to be a great avenue for them, but they were scared to jump on the path. And when they did, when I helped them jump on the path, they blossomed and flourished. I've helped people start masterminds, and I've helped people start coaching in businesses because they were born a coach. It's not something that they did. It was something that they were. It was in their body trying to get out. I've helped people that had a desire and a dream and a passion for being a comedian, a stand-up comedian. I helped them start to get up on stages to help. Like, they borrowed my trust. They borrowed my courage. They borrowed my confidence until they had some of their own. And then I got the enjoyment of going and seeing them perform on a stage that I helped them get up on. And there's nothing that's more satisfying in my life than helping people step into their alignment. On social media, I recently made a post that said, build or buy, you can buy these businesses now, build or buy a business that amplifies, that expresses, and that fuels your soul instead of robbing your soul. So many people are in careers that suck the soul out of them. So many people are in jobs that just suck their life force. So many people are running businesses that they're just depleting them. And in an aligned life, if you are living in alignment, everything that you do creates more energy in your life instead of depleting the energy or robbing you of energy. In an aligned life, everything feels like a fuck yes, not a fuck no. And you honor your yes and you honor your no. And you don't serve yourself up as a sacrificial lamb to do things that you don't want to do just because everybody else is doing it. When you step into your alignment, if it's not a fuck yes, it is a fuck no. And if it is a no, somebody comes along with an opportunity, and if you get a no, then you state no and you state your truth, because you are deciding to live in your integrity, and that is living in alignment with the dream that you were born with, the desires that you were born with, the talents that you were born with, the genius that you were born with, and you are choosing to express that and that only. I want to ask you this. Do you know what a full body yes is? What happens with me is if I have a choice whether to do something or to not do something, there's times where it maybe. There's times where it's a no and I can feel it. It's like a no. No, that doesn't fit for me. But there are times where an opportunity is presented, a path is presented, and an experience is presented, a choice, a decision is presented. And I get lit up from head to toe, and every cell of my body is saying yes. It's like a full body yes. That is what living from inspiration feels like. It's only signing yourself up for those things that give you that full body yes. And if nothing gives you a full body yes, then you don't take action just for the sake of taking action. You live through your inspired response. And when it's go time, you go. But when it's not full body yes, you withhold, you step back, you restrain yourself, and you wait for the thing that is a full body yes. And when you're courageous enough in yourself, when you're confident enough in yourself, when you trust yourself enough to honor your intuition, because that's what that is. When you're courageous enough and you trust yourself enough to honor your intuition, you're going to see your spiritual path, your spiritual purpose is going to be able to unfold in your life. And opportunities that are perfect for you will present themselves to you. And when you get that full body yes, go. But when you're not inspired in that way, then you have the courage and the confidence and the trust in yourself to just hold until that perfect opportunity comes along. From the guy that I used to be that was completely out of alignment in my health, in my relationships, in my business or my professional career, to this guy who wakes up and I know I make a difference in the world. I'm expressing my talents. I'm expressing my gifts. I'm living. I say yes when I want to say yes and no when I want to say no. And there are times where I still confuse the two and I still have to step back and recover. It's not a game of perfection. It's a game of learning. It's a game of elevating. It's a game of upgrading and constant awareness, new levels of self-awareness. But as I continue to grow in that dimension, everything in my life gets better. And I'm inviting you into this space. If there's anything out of obligation that you're doing, if there's anything out of just insecurity, inadequacy, insignificance, if there's anything that you're just doing, and you know you're compromising a piece of yourself, I invite you to get into a place of alignment and rediscover the desires and dreams and talents and gifts, skills, that genius that you were born with, that purpose, that mission. Let's go rediscover that. Let's go remember what you were here, put on this planet, put on this in this material plane, what you were put here to do. And I'll leave you with this. If you're on your path, you know it. And if you're not on your path, you might know it. But if you're on your path, you always know it. So there's really no middle ground. If you're questioning whether you are on your aligned path, you're not. And it's time to dig deeper, and it's time to get to know the real you. And you can start by studying some of the soul sciences. And I would encourage you to grab a book called The Life That You Were Born to Live by Dan Millman. It's numerology. It'll help you understand your life path. And it might just crack you open just enough to lean in a little more, to find your authentic, purposeful, most powerful, intentional path so that you can become aligned with who you were always meant to be and who you were from the very first inhale. And when you feel that, when you really connect to your deepest alignment, that's when you can begin to really live and stop just trying to not die. That's when every breath will be a fullest expression of yourself. And that's what you've always been looking to experience.